All right, everyone. Good morning, noon, or night. Maybe even evening. I'm not sure. My name is Georgia, and I'm the executive front-end developer at Project Empower. And welcome to our front-end React webinar. For all the beginners that are watching this, they're probably like, "Oh my goodness, what is React? I've never heard of that before. What are we going to do?" Basically, we're going to do a very beginner-friendly crash course to build projects with React, just to practice a little bit. For some of you, this is going to be really easy, and you'll be like, "Oh, I have this in the bag. It's very simple. I know what I'm doing." That's cool. You can feel free to just listen along, follow along, or work on your project and have this in the background. That's cool too. For some others, though, this is going to be a little bit more difficult. So before we get into it, we're going to be doing a pretty detailed webinar without any prior knowledge to React. So it's best that we probably have so the requirements for this webinar is that we know a little bit of HTML, we know a little bit of CSS, and we know a little bit of JavaScript. If somebody wants to pipe up, how many of us generally know a little bit of any of these languages?
Yeah, I'm kind of aware what HTML is.
That's awesome. Okay. I was about to say we have crickets in the chat, but it's nice to know I'm not talking into the void. So it's good that we have a little bit of background knowledge. Obviously, some of us are going to be completely beginners and we have no idea what any of these even mean. And that's okay too. Try to still follow along. I'm going to try and explain as much as I can, but it might be a little bit more difficult in this webinar to do some of this stuff, but I'll try and make it as easy as possible to understand. So here's just some recommendations before we get started. So it's best that we're always taking notes. We're coding along with what I'm doing. So if I'm showing you some example code, we're going to be practicing building, just using some of the components I talk about. We're going to be building a little bit of a to-do list app just to get some practice with the components I mentioned. And if you're facing any doubts or hurdles, that's normal. It's part of learning. If you have any questions, feel free to pop up, just pitch in right away, or you can leave it in the questions form in the Discord, and I can answer it right after the webinar. All right, so we're going to go through a couple of things in this webinar, and to start off, we're going to talk about basically just an introduction to React, what it is, why it's important, why we should learn about it. We're going to talk about some reusable components, so why are they important, how we can reuse code so we don't repeat our code over and over again. We're going to talk about some props, we're going to talk about some event handlers, and we're going to talk about some React hooks. This all probably sounds like a bunch of random code jargon that makes no sense right now, but that's okay. We're going to learn about it today. So before we even begin, what is React? Well, React is a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. It can also be called a JavaScript framework, and really it doesn't matter. All you need to know is that it's just a level up from JavaScript. It's a more easy way to build your programs and your applications using JavaScript, but it's now called React. So why should you use React? Well, first of all, it's easier to use than just doing your vanilla JavaScript or your CSS, your HTML, and your vanilla JavaScript all at once. It's extremely maintainable. It's really easy to mix components and reuse code without having to repeat yourself. It's really scalable. And that's what all the big companies are using. All your websites you see are using React. All the big, like Google, Facebook, Amazon, all of those big name companies are using React for their websites. And it's one of the most popular front-end frameworks. So anywhere you go, you'll probably see the website using React. And it's being maintained by Facebook, so it's constantly being updated. They're constantly coming up with new stuff. They're constantly keeping it up to date so that it works as best as possible for us. So we're going to now, on our own computers, come to our main page. So I have a MacBook, so this might be a little bit different than those of you who have Windows. But I'm going to just come to the side and I'm going to search for my terminal. We're going to pull up our terminal like this. Oh, by the way, if I'm talking too fast, guys, feel free to tell me that I'm talking too fast and ask me to slow down. I will do my best to try and keep with the group. So once we have our terminal open like this, for Mac users, you're going to want to go into your search and search terminal as well, but in the other corner, in your left-hand corner instead of your right-hand corner. And we're going to type in node space dash and v. And as you can see, I already have Node installed, so this little version is going to pop up here, this version number. For some of you guys, if you don't have Node React installed, you're going to follow me, and we're going to search node space JS. And we're going to click on the first link here. It should say nodejs.org. We're going to click on that, and we're going to download the latest version. So for me, it's going to be the 20.51, this version right here, and you're going to wait for that to download. If you can do that, go right ahead. You're going to download that. I already have it downloaded, as you can see, because I have my version right here. So you're going to just go ahead and download that right away. I know it takes a little while sometimes to download, so it could be that it either downloads and it works, or it could take a little while. I'm going to go ahead. If you guys, it takes too long to download and I go too far, I do have the slides linked in the announcements channel that you can go back and look at what we did before. So while you're waiting for that to download, once you have it downloaded, or you think you have it downloaded, you're going to go node space dash v, enter again, and your version number should pop up, like I have it here. All right, now once you have it installed, we're going to go npx space create dash react dash app space, and we're going to put the project name. So for this, I'm going to put to do, and that's going to be my project name. And we're going to click enter. Now right here, what it's doing is it's going, oh, okay, I forgot you can't use capital letters. My bad. They updated it again, so you can't use capitals. So we'll do the same thing. And we'll wait for it to download. Oh, still have capital letters. Forgot about that. My bad. We're just going to write to do, because that's what we're going to be building. And we're going to wait for it to load, and it's going to be downloading, ideally to your desktop. We're just going to give it some time here to compile, because what it's doing right now is all of those functions that we use and all of those quick just little pieces of code that we use sometimes to make things go faster, like functions, event handlers, props. It's downloading all those different things that are different from JavaScript to React, because now it's going to download all those different things that you can only use React and not use in JavaScript. So we're going to give it some time. My internet's a little slow, so this may take a little while. Do we have any questions so far? If you have a question, feel free to pipe up and I'll answer it as soon as I can. So far, so good. Okay, no questions so far. Again, this is going to take a little while because it's downloading, again, all of those things for React. Give it its time. Don't rush it. It needs to download all of those things. All right, so it should be... Oh, where did it download to now? Okay. We're going to start with cd to do just to find where it is. And I don't know where it is. That's wonderful. Okay. We're just going to go into my files and find it then, because that's not the favorite part about doing this, is having no idea where I put my files. I'm sure some of you can relate to that, those of you who code, or those of you who just have school or working right now. So I actually have no idea where this went, which I am not really appreciating at all. Oh, there it is. Okay. We're just going to put it in the desktop. Now that I found it, wonderful. We're going to open VS Code now. I'm sure some of you are familiar. And I'm just going to you can drag and drop it right in. So if you don't want to go into your files and stuff and find it, you can just go like this to open it right up. I like to go into my files and find it, but you can do that as well. So now that we are in VS Code, you're probably wondering what all of these files mean. It looks pretty intimidating right now. We've got node modules, we've got public, src, and then we've got these like JSON files. That's probably, you're like, whoa, I've never seen this before. If you've coded with HTML, CSS, or JavaScript before, but never done React, this is going to look really intimidating. Don't worry, it's not that bad, I promise. So node modules, that's all of our function. Sorry, what was that? Oh, okay. All right. Sorry, I thought it was another question. Feel free to pipe up if you have a question. That's all good. So node modules, basically, these are all of our functions that we can call on later. We don't really need to know what's going on in here. All you need to know is that's how we're making React work. We don't touch that. We do not touch these files unless you want your whole app to just collapse. Right here, we have our public folder, and this is usually where all of your files or just your assets will go. So this, when you download React, you download it with a couple of things, and it'll just have like general stuff in it already. And I'll show you when we run it why those are there. And then src, this is what we're going to be using the most, the src folder. In here we have our app CSS, we have our app.js, we have all of our files that we're going to be using. Now, to explain some of these files, we only really need to know what's going on in the index.js file, the app CSS file, and the app.js file. The rest of these files kinda don't really matter. I mean, I guess index.css can matter, but not for right now. We're just going to leave the rest of them alone. So, when we want to run, so I'm sure if you've worked with HTML, CSS, or JavaScript before, you have worked with Live Server. Live Server is a great way to show what you're coding in just live, I guess, in your in Google, in Firefox, or in any of those things. For us, though, it's going to be a bit different. We're going to open an integrated terminal, and we're going to write npm start. And this is going to open our React app right here. I'm just going to put them side by side so we can see them both. And as you can see, unlike with the live server, it pops up and there's already stuff in the local host already. This stuff is just what every React app has as soon as you start. Don't worry about the yellow stuff. It's not really that important. Happens every time. So basically, already, if you can look here in our function, the structure is a lot different in React than it is a lot of other things. It's a little bit different, but it's combining HTML, CSS, and JavaScript all at once. So basically, we're doing JavaScript and we're doing a function, but inside that function, we're doing HTML. And then we're calling we're importing pretty much from another file, our CSS. So it's kind of the same as you would do with vanilla JavaScript. You're still importing your CSS, but now you're doing your HTML and your JavaScript together. If you've worked with APIs before with your JavaScript, this will look a little bit familiar. If you haven't, that's okay too. We're still going to work for this. But before we do anything though, I want you to click on your app.js file, and we're going to rename it. And we're at the end of our JS, we're going to add an X and click enter. This won't really change anything. It's still going to work the same way, but instead now we'll be able to do you'll be able to add things just like you would in your HTML, and you can just enter and it'll come up. Whereas if you just had it in your JS file, you wouldn't be able to do that, and you'd have to manually type out everything, which is not my favorite thing to do at all. Now, next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into our index.js file. Sorry, I forgot to explain this, but app.jsx files, this is where the meat of your application is. This is like when you have your styles.css or when you have your index.html. This is your index.html file now. Does that make sense? And we're exporting our index.html file, and we're exporting it so that it runs in here. Because you'll notice we import it somewhere in here. I can't find it. We import it so that it runs in here. Because what runs first is what's in this index.js file. Now, what we're going to do next is we're going to just get rid of these react.strict mode tags in our index.js. Those are great tags to have on your code, and they work wonderfully because they always make sure it's great for debugging. It shows up a lot of stuff in your console, but we're not actually going to be needing them today. So we're just going to go ahead and get rid of those. But do not touch this file otherwise, because otherwise we're going to have a lot of problems later. So now that we are in here, we can go back to our app.jsx file, and we're just going to get rid of all of this stuff because we don't really need it. And boom, we have our blank local host now. I'm also going to get rid of this class name because we really need it. So the thing that's different about React compared to HTML and JavaScript, though, as well, is that you need to make sure you're writing everything in your div tags here. I'm going to get rid of this. Do you see these two div tags right here? Those just need to wrap whatever you're writing, because it lets the computer know, oh, you're writing in HTML now, not JavaScript. We're still writing it in JavaScript, but we're writing HTML inside the JavaScript. Now, I don't really like having the div tags there because they don't really mean anything. So I like to just do the shorthanded notation of doing that. And these are called, if I remember correctly, these are called empty tags. And I could be wrong, I think there's another word for them, but I call these empty tags because it's just easier to remember. So we're going to go ahead now, and we're going to create our to-do app, right? Because that's what we're here to do. So let's go ahead with our h1 tag, and we're going to write to-do list. What do we want it to be? No, let's go to-do list for now. And then we'll have our h2 tag, and we'll say, and these will be all of our, what do I need to get done? Complete front-end webinar. And we'll put just a little button to delete this after. So this is basic, and here we go. And it comes, and you don't have to save, I don't think, a lot of the stuff in here. I think it'll just automatically update in your local host, but I could be wrong. So I think I might have mine on autosave, which might be a bit different than a lot of other people's VS Code, because I know a lot of people hate autosave, but I actually enjoy it. We can also have like a description in here. Let's say we'll put a p tag, and we'll say do webinar for 1 hour. All right, and then if we wanted multiple elements in here, we're going to have to copy paste all of them, right? And that can get tedious because now look what we're doing. Or sorry, I included the title in there. Now look what we're doing. We're repeating our code, which is not, if you ever hear anybody talk about code, ever, the worst thing you can do is copy and paste and paste and paste code. That's usually a sign right away that you can be doing something differently to make it work better. And that, my friends, is where components come in. Oop. So why do we use reusable components? That's a really good question. Components help us reduce our code duplication. Like you just saw from my to-do list app, if I want to make multiple elements in there with a bunch of different to-do list elements with just what I want to do, I don't want to copy and paste it a bajillion times. If you're working with an API, that'll just never work. What we want to do instead is use components. And here's what I'm going to show you how we're going to do it now. What we're going to do is we're going to, in our SRC folder right here, we're going to make a new folder. And we're going to call it components just to keep it easy. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry. Okay. Let me go in here. Do, 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 do. Sorry, I didn't realize it was that small. Yes, yeah, 100%. I get it, guys. Let's see if that's better. Oh, that's really huge. Okay. Let's keep it 20. Is that better? Can we see more? Okay. Awesome. Okay. Sorry, my computer is really, really huge. So to me, like my text before is massive, but I know that because it's on somebody else's computer, it might be really tiny. So now that we have a components folder in here, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new file, and this is going to be our new component, and we're going to call it to-do element. It's going to be our to-do.js, and this is going to be our to-do component now. And you're probably wondering, well, what are we going to do in here? We're actually going to create a function, just like we would in JavaScript. We're going to put our brackets in squiggly brackets now. And we're going to call it, we're going to return in the middle, we're going to return this right here. Oh, I forgot to wrap it in div tags again. The empty div tags. See, again, it kind of like does not really enjoy having it without, you have to wrap it in div tags, that's all I'm going to say. It does not like when you not do that. So we're going to just keep it like that. So now, and then we're going to go down here, and we're going to export it. This is really important that we're exporting it. Oh, I forgot to name it. Okay, we'll call it to do. It's really important that we export our function, because if we don't export our function, all this code will run, but it doesn't do anything, if that makes sense. It runs, but it doesn't show up because it's not being called. So what we're going to do is we're going to export we're going to export, if we can just give me 1 second to remember, I think it's default to do. What did I call it again? Oh, yes. And then we just put there we go. And once we go back in here, we're going to import it. So we're going to say import to do from, and now we're going to our script tags. We're going to click our components file because that's where it's located. We're going to do another slash and we're going to click to do. Now you're probably wondering, okay, we imported it. Why is it still not showing up? Because we still have our to-do title right here, but we're still not seeing our to-do thing. Well, now we got to call it as a tag. So now we're going to say, we're going to call it as to-do. And voila, it's there. Isn't that really cool? Now we can reuse the same thing over and over as many times as we want. No issues. I can put it 3, I can put 4, I can put 5, no problem. And I don't have to retype the same thing over and over and over again, which is really awesome. We can also do the shorthand notation of this. So it does the same thing, but I actually prefer going like this instead to keep it short form, and we can just put it like that. So instead of our to-do open and close, we do the same thing at once in the same tag, and the short form is just to add a /. And I'm going to actually do that for all of them. So now we've got our 5 different tags. Oh, well, we already talked about this. So for your notes, there are 2 parts to a component. There's creating a component and using a component. And what I just showed you is how we create a component. When we're in here, we create a function. Inside the function, we return something. And that's really important. You have to return something inside the function. And that's whatever we want our function to do or our component to do. And then we export the component into our app.jsx file. We import it in our object.jsx file, and then we can use it as a tag. So for your notes, if you're writing notes right now, you would copy this, I guess what I've written here. So creating a component, create a new file in the components folder. We called it to-do.jsx. Inside this file, inside this folder, or inside the folder, we create a function, and we called our function to do. And there you go. Inside your function, you're going to return some type of JSX. So in here I said return finish project and power hackathon, and then you're going to export your function. Now when you want to use a component, you're going to input the file, import to do from where it was from, and then you're going to use it like a tag. Again, I've linked this PowerPoint in the announcements channel, so if I'm going too fast and you want to write this stuff down, go ahead and look at the PowerPoint's link right after this. All right, so here I'm going to assign you a task, my friends. This task is going to be create a new component for the title My To-Do List. So you notice I have My To-Do List right here in these H1 tags. I want you to create a new component and then do everything I said, and I want to see it in the app.jsx file. I'll give you a couple seconds to do that. All right, so that you should have been able to do that. If you weren't, that's totally okay too. Components are really hard to wrap your head around, especially if you're a beginner. But we're going to go into our components folder. We're going to create a new file. We're going to call it title.jsx. And we're going to create a new function. We're going to call it title. And we're going to go to our app.jsx file, and we're going to put it in here. Again, I forgot the div tags again. And I forgot to return it too, which is not good practice, guys. And now we're going to return that right there. Now we got to make sure we export it. So we're going to export default title. We're going to go back to our app.jsx file, and we're going to import it now. Because remember, because we can export it, but we have to still call it in here. And when we do, you don't have to, it doesn't matter what string tags you used, it's all the same. I also recommend, I forgot to do this before, but you want to always put the extension of your file name on the end. It's just so that later, if you decide to use a CSS file for the component, it doesn't get it all confused and just like freak out, I guess. So now we're going to call it. We're going to call our title, and we're going to close it. And voila, there is our title in a component. And if I wanted to put the same title on the bottom, I could do that again too. And there it is. So now that we've done that, we're going to go back. And boom, we have just completed 2 parts already to our webinar overview. We've done the introduction and we've done props. Sorry, we've done components. Now we're going to go on to props, which is right here. So what are props? props make components dynamic. So you know how in here, how it's all the exact same thing, same every single time? You're probably wondering, well, how can I make it the same exact single time, but how can I make the words different? How can I change what's in there each time? And we are going to work on that right now. So there are two parts to props in React components. You can create a prop and using the prop. So creating the prop, how to create a prop, you pass the property name and value. So to do prop name equals prop value. And I'm just going to show us what that means, what I mean by that in here. So we're going to say, what do we want to call, let's say I want to change what each of these to do examples are. So I'm going to change the title. Prop title. And because we're doing a string, we can just do equals. But if it was another thing, you have to do, you have to do curly brackets and put your things in there. Okay? But since we're just using a string, we're just going to do that. So let's say my first one, I want to complete the front-end webinar. And the second one, I want to, what else do we want to do, guys? I don't know. Win the hackathon, because I know everybody wants to win. Have a party after the hackathon because you won. Come on, guys. We all know you guys are doing great. I've seen some of the chalk in there. Party for hackathon win. And maybe take a nap. We'll put the last one as nap because, we've worked really hard. We've had a party. We partied too hard. And we need to take a nap now. So, nap. I'm just going to get rid of this last one because we don't really need it. All right, so now we have all this stuff. But look, we typed all these different things in, but it's not showing up over here in our localhost. We're probably like, that's really weird. Well, guess what? There's another step to using props. We have to use the prop, not just create it, we also have to use it. So first we have to accept props as a parameter. So remember that to-do JSX file we made and these brackets right here? We have to accept the parameter props.title. So I called it props.title in here? Yes, I did. Prop title. We're going to also do the same thing in here. Remember, you need squiggly brackets if you were to do this. So you can either do prop title, just the name, passing it in. You have to use squiggly brackets for that. If you don't want to use squiggly brackets, because, I don't know, maybe you just don't want to, we do prop.prop.title. And this is going to, not like this at all. I actually don't know why it doesn't like that. I'll figure it out later and I'll tell you guys. Because usually you would just do prop and then the name of your prop with a dot in between. But we're going to do it in squiggly brackets right now. Now we're going to go accepting it. We did that. We accepted it as a parameter. Now we need to use the prop itself because we've accepted it but not really used it. So we're going to go in here and we're going to change this. So you see how we have our H1 tags right here? Well, we need to take the prop that we used right here that we passed, and we need to return that inside what we want to say. So we have an H2. We want to put our prop title right in there. And look at that. We have our each of the different things we wanted for our to-do list, and they're all in here now, all dynamic. Now, I'm going to give you guys a task. What we're going to do is we're going to create multiple props now. So for this little description I have here, you say do webinar in 1 hour, all the same thing that I have in our to-do. This P tag, the description, I want you to make that into a prop using what I've created on this slide. And I'll leave it up there and I'll give you guys some time to work on it. All right, I've given you some time to think it through. I know it's a little bit different because multiple props is just another prop, and you're probably like, oh, what if I have to do, how do I pass multiple props without it just like blowing up on me and getting multiple errors in my console? It's actually really easy. So we're gonna go back to our code here, and we're gonna say description as our second prop. And I'm gonna do that for each of them. And for our description, what do we want? We'll say, we'll have the same thing as what I have there for the first one for 1 hour. The second one we're gonna do, win the hackathon. What we can do for that? Work really hard. Work on project really hard. Third one we can say, be happy we won hackathon. And for the last one, we can say rest because we partied hard. Now, again, we're seeing that is again not changing despite that we passed it. So yes, we did this. We passed the property name and the value, but what we haven't done is we haven't used it. So what we're going to do is we're going to accept the props in the parameter. So the same thing as we did the first time. We're going to go back to title JSX, and we're going to back to to-do.jsx, and we're going to just pass another property, and we called it description. All right, and now we're going to put it in between these p tags right here. And it is not liking that at all. Why? Is it because I put a space? Oh, maybe I spelt it wrong. That could be it too. A lot of the time when your errors pop up, it's likely that you just spelt it wrong, aka me spelling it wrong right here. I probably still spelled description wrong. For those of you who do not know, I'm very bad at spelling. Do not come for me. I code. That's what I do. I don't spell. So again, a lot of errors are just going to be spelling. Probably check that before anything else. And here we go. It's all dynamic again. Check mark, we've used props. So right now, I'm going to show you something. So I've actually provided resources to you guys so that we don't spend too much time coding when we can be learning. I've actually provided resources. I'm going to find the Discord. Where's the Discord? Okay. So when we go to our announcements tab right here, I've actually provided resources right here for us to download. It's called Modal CSS and Modal HTML. So we're in our components tab. We're going to create a new file. We're going to call it modal.jsx. And we're going to create a new file again, and this is going to be modal.css. And in this modal.jsx file, we're going to create a function. We're going to call it modal, because I'm unoriginal. And we are going to return something because we don't want the code to literally have a meltdown. But we're going to go into my HTML I've provided here, and we're going to take this file, we're going to copy it, we're going to paste it in the return, and format it because that looks ugly. And then we're going to export default modal. I'm going to put a semicolon because I'm just a fancy coder. All right. And now in our modal.css, we're going to take all this CSS right here, and we're just going to copy and paste it into our CSS file. It's not going to format itself properly because it never does, and I'm just going to format document with prettier. Guys, go download the extension prettier for code. it saves you so much time keeping your code clean. And everybody's going to be like, oh, your code is formatted so nicely. I do that for all my documents, and I tell my whole team to get it because it just keeps everything easy to read. So you're probably wondering, okay, we have the modal. How do we import the code now? We don't actually do anything in the CSS file, but we do import in the JSX file. So we're going to go, just like we did in our app.js, we're going to go import, and we're just going to, but we're not going to do the name and all that because it's not a function, it's just CSS. And we're going to say component. If my computer, okay, that was weird. Oh, right, it's not in the file, we just need to go dot modal.css. And that should work. It's not going to pop up because it's a CS file, not a JSX file, which is why I said always write down your extensions. But your task for right now, if I can find it, can you pass the prop? Are you sure? This right here. Can we make this a prop from our app.jsx file? We'll just import it here. We'll put the modal on the bottom. Wait a second, that was weird. Why didn't it like that? Oh yes, we forgot to import modal. Come on, Georgia, you gotta import it. Slash modal dot JSX. And it still doesn't like that. That isn't good. Am I exporting my modal? I am. Let's go back here and look at it. Port modal. That is very odd. If you haven't noticed getting these errors that you don't understand, yes, that happens a lot. It's because I didn't, Is anybody else getting this error, or is it just my computer who's decided not to work today? Oh, there we go. Okay, it wanted some space apparently. Okay, so now you should see this modal on your screen. And what I want you to do is, in your modal, I want you to make this component, and I want you to pass the prop, are you sure, into the modal title right here. I want you to make it a prop instead of static. And I'll give you a few seconds to do that. All right, we're assuming that worked out. And we're going to go back to our modal right here. Actually, we're going to go to app.jsx. I'm going to close this so everybody can see, and I'll make this smaller so everybody can see more. We're going to go into our modal, and we're going to say title, because that's what it is, the title of the thing. We're going to make a string value, and we're going to say, are we sure? You sure you want to delete? And again, it's not showing up. That's because we need to go into our modal, we need to pass the new prop title, and we need to go in here and pass the title. And there we go. Are you sure you want to delete? Voila. Okay, what did just happen there? Okay, so for your notes, you're going to want to write this. So for my component, or whatever it is, the component name right here, the component name. So whatever it is, your modal, your title, your HTML, your CSS, whatever it is that the component's title is, then whatever you want to make dynamic, you're going to put right in here. So your prop name, then whatever you want the value of the prop to be. So if I want to say like, are you sure? I'd write that in here. And then this is going to pass from this prop right here. This prop goes into the function, used in the function, and then it comes out in the output. So boom, we're done with props. Now we're going to go with event handlers. So what are event handlers? And you're probably like, oh, you've probably heard of this before if you've done HTML, CSS, or JavaScript. You're probably familiar a little bit with that lingo. You're probably like, oh yeah, I remember that. So event handlers are basically code that execute when an event occurs. So if, for example, we have onClick and onChange. So if I click something, just like I click it, it's going to go to the next slide and it's all white. That would be an onClick event, and an onChange event would be when this changes, this will also change. So if I change, let's say you're using, let's say you do a forward button click, when that changes, it changes the slide. Does that make sense? The difference, though, between using them in JavaScript and using them in React is that we don't use capital letters anymore. We all go to lowercase. So we're going to go back to our modal.jsx file. And you see I've already supplied you with some buttons. We're going to go to the first button, cancel button, and we're going to go underneath. We're going to tab this just so I have better formatting and I'm not going delusional because I can't see anything. We're going to go under here and we're going to create a new event listener, and we're going to make it the onClick event listener. OnClick equals, and it's going to not like this because we have to add squiggly brackets. And then what do we want to do? Let's say console log cancel. Now, why is it not working? Because we're going to open our console in here. Oh, that is a lot of errors that it does not like. Okay, we're going to ignore that for now. We're going to reload this. There we go. Now it gets rid of all the... Why is it already saying cancel? Why is it already saying cancel? We didn't click on it yet, did we? No, we didn't, right? Yeah, we didn't click on it. So why is it running? Well, the answer to that is we need to pass the event through something first. We need something to happen before we click cancel. And we'll reload this, and look, cancel's not there anymore, but then when I click it, boom, cancel comes up. So on-click listeners are just like they are in JavaScript, but they're a little bit different because they have, remember all that stuff we imported? It changes a lot of the functionalities of what happens in JavaScript. So we're going to do the same thing down here. I want you to try and do that for this button now. And instead of console logging cancel, I want you to console log confirm instead. And I'll give you a few seconds to do that. All right, and now what we're going to do is we're just going to go on click, squiggly brackets. Oh, forgot the equal sign. Squiggly brackets. We're going to pass something in first so that it doesn't do it right away. We're going to console log confirm. Oop, that is not how to spell confirm. And why does it not like that now? On click. Oh, forgot to spell console wrong with an M. Guys, all of your errors is probably not your coding skill. It's probably just you're spelling something wrong. I will say that again. It's probably, and look, now when I click the buttons, boom, those things come up. Wonderful. Now we're going to go back to our slides, and we're going to look at the code for this. Oh, I just did the task. Whoops. All right, so that is event handlers done. And now for React hooks. There's a lot of React hooks, same as there's a lot of event handlers. But the main two most important ones are useState and useEffect. So useState is how we define variables in React. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to go, whoa, where is my code? Okay, we're going to go back here. So now that is, we're just going to comment out the modal for a second, just so we don't have to talk about it. And for those of you who want to know the shortcut for commenting anything out in code, just click command / /. We're actually going to go to, we're back in our app.jsx file. And we are going to go, boo. We're actually going to practice a little bit with an on change before we move on. So we have our title up here, but we're going to add a div. And inside that div, we're going to put input, and we're going to do type text. We're going to click add an on change event. Sorry, I got them mixed up. In JavaScript, you use it all lowercase. In React, we do it with an uppercase in the middle. We're going to say event. So instead of passing in nothing right now, though, we're going to pass in an event. And inside that event, we're going to console.log event. .target.value. And this might sound familiar for those of you who use JavaScript a lot before. If it doesn't, this is basically just getting all the value of what we're targeting right now. No, I want it to be a Boolean type, though. Stop giving me errors for stuff that doesn't matter. And boom, now we have an input field to add new stuff, and it's going to console log that entire thing, which is not exactly what we want, but we're going to keep it that way for now. Now we're going to also add another button. We're going to do button on click equals, and then we're going to pass something in. We're going to not pass anything in right now because we don't need to. We're going to set show modal because we want to get rid of the modal when we don't need it. And we're going to set this value to true for now, if I can spell properly. And it's not going to really like me right now, but that's too bad. Oh, that's why it doesn't like me. Okay. And now we're going to add to do, because we're going to add an element. That's what, oh, no. Add to do, not the component we want to add. And we'll close it. And we're going to reload this. Oh, I haven't defined set show modal. Well, I didn't define it before, and it was fine. Oh, yes, we have to go up here, outside of our return function, and we're going to say const So basically, we're just creating an array right now. For those of you that have coded in JavaScript before, this is going to be not very new. But we're actually going to pass the useState value in now. And we're going to say it's false first. So the modal's not going to show up in the beginning. Well, useState, oh yes, we need to import useState, guys. Import React. So remember that stuff we downloaded in the known modules? We need to import that. So useState, we do need to import what it is. Because otherwise it's just, as you can see with my compiled with errors signal on the left, it's not going to like it. But we're going to, if my computer would just run properly. I defined it already. Okay, there we go. Now it got rid of all the errors. So you do have to import useState. So we imported it. We set it in an array. So this array show modal. and set show modal are set already. Here, I'll go back to my notes so that makes more sense. So we're going to state the variable first. We're going to create a function that changes the state, and then we're going to set the default value of the state. We're going to pretty much say it. And we're calling it right here. We're calling the function right here. So now if I click add to do, it's not doing anything. And that is because I did not create a function for this. So I did not create a function for this, but if we were to create a function to do this for us, we would do the same thing as we did with all these. Same thing, same exact thing. This isn't happy with me right now because I got rid of the strict mode, but you would do the same exact thing as you did with the other JSX files, and you would just toggle on, toggle off, toggle on, toggle off. Unfortunately, we do not have time for that today, but that would be what we would do. And so pretty much we have completed everything in the webinar, guys. We've completed everything. That's awesome. So thank you so much, everyone. I wish you the best of luck on your journey in this hackathon. And yeah, do we have any questions before I go? I know I kind of started rushing at the end because we were running out of time, but yeah, you can, guys, ask questions. Sorry, I'm just looking at the chat right now. Yes, I did. Sorry, I didn't realize my VS Code was so small. The div tag around everything is basically just to add some padding, but I don't know why React wants you to have the empty div tags around everything. I'm actually not sure about that, but I think it just lets React know, lets the computer know that I'm gonna do HTML now. Oh yeah, so the button for delete was originally gonna toggle the modal we talked about. We were originally, I didn't have enough time for this, but the modal, what we were gonna do is we were originally gonna sorry, I'm not sharing my screen anymore. We were originally gonna go into our modal again, and we were gonna make the title dynamic. So we'd have two different modals in our app.jsx file. And we would make it so that you could either delete or add something. Okay. Was this for website HTML or React? So this is what we call React. What we worked on today is called React. And this is every website uses this. All the high scalable websites use this. All Netflix, Amazon, Google, Facebook, anything that you would know, any website you look at is probably using React if they get many users. So the show modal thing, I can definitely show you that again. Sorry, I was rushing at the end a little bit there, but basically I'm going to show you what I had on the slide because I think that explains it the best. So basically, in the middle of your app.jsx file, this is really, really high-end stuff. The use state functions in React is really, really high-level stuff, so it's okay if you don't understand it quite yet. But basically, you're going to create an array. You don't have to you don't have to name the array, but we're going to make a constant array, and you're going to set what your variable is. So let's say in the case that we used before, in here we said show modal is our variable. And the function that changes the state, so the state of the show modal in here is changed over here. So it's saying that show modal is equal to false right now. But this function, what I would have done is I would have created a new component and coded it so that when I click the button, it would show the modal. When I would click the X or around it, it would not show the modal. But since we haven't clicked the button right now, it's showing false. Does that make sense? Which workshop will show you intro to apps? Do you mean web apps or? Oh, of course. Yeah. So what workshop? Okay, applications. I'm not sure that we actually have a workshop for that, but I can definitely check in with Alex about it. Are there any other questions before we go? All right, everyone, I think that's all the questions for now. I wish you all the best of luck in your hackathon. Good work, everyone. Have a nice day.